September's Bennu's Table looks at the myth of Lleu Llaw Gyffes, and it's a very special Bennu's Table because it's our 1 year anniversary. We started up in September 2022. Lleu Llaw Gyffes is a figure from Welsh legend. He sometimes is associated with being a deity or a god, but the tales come from what we think of as being hero tales and a storybook called the Mabinogion, which includes many of the myths that we associate with Wales. And the myth of Lleu Llaw Gyffes starts with Arianrhod. And I'm going to call Arianrhod a goddess because, again, although she comes from heroic tales where these figures were not described as deities, she is worshipped as a deity by many people. So Arianrhod's story has been interpreted in different ways, but it looks as though what happened was Arianrhod's uncle or brother, depending on which retelling you look at, Gwydion, sexually abused her, and this resulted in the birth of her son, Lleu Llaw Gyffes, and also her son Dylan. So she had not realised that she was pregnant and suddenly and traumatically gave birth to these twin babies. Dylan was captured and stolen away before she realised he existed, but Lleu Llaw Gyffes, she felt a lot of shame and trauma towards. So at this point, she cursed Lleu Llaw Gyffes, her son, with never being able to have a name or arms, which basically means weapons. So no name and no weapons unless she personally gives them to him, which throughout the stories she is then reluctant to do. Eventually she's tricked into giving him both a name and arms. Within the story there isn't really a resolution, and poor Arianrhod just sort of goes on through life being battled against by the other members of her family who want to see the championing of Lleu Llaw Gyffes. Lleu Llaw Gyffes, on the other hand, has a mother who then he sees as an enemy and doesn't have that resolution himself either. So it is, if you look at it, quite a sad story, but there's lots of other things that happen within the Mabinogion at a later date. So the story is woven into lots of different tales and chapters, and you can see what happens in terms of this particular sort of story arc. So maybe unsurprisingly, what we're looking at within this Bennu's Table and within the myth of Lleu Llaw Gyffes is the story of inherited shame and inherited trauma being passed on generation to generation. We carry the scars of the generations above us. And that's not something that they deliberately do, or in the case of Arianrhod, she actively curses him because of what he represents to her. So we can, as tiny babies and then as children and as adults, carry energy that we've inherited or energy that's been put upon us by our ancestors. And therefore, this Bennu's Table takes us from the very end of the piece of work that we've been doing on blockages and on internalization and things that hold us back, onto the next theme, which is coming up in the autumn, which looks at ancestors. So what do we carry from our ancestors? What do we hold within us that maybe blocks us, that maybe gives us limiting beliefs? What do we hold that doesn't belong to us and we can now let go of? What expectations did our families and others have for us? What fears have we inherited? What's stopping us from being the people that we need to be? What's stopping us from having weapons and having our true name? And how do we reclaim our weapons or our skills? How do we reclaim the true self that lives within us? And how do we do so whilst not causing animosity and battle between ourselves and our ancestors? And that's what we'll be working on, that big heavy subject area, but incredibly powerful and transformative in September's Bennu's Table. So join me and claim back your skills.